Hey, Brandon Pedersen here, wanting to talk to you about Investorfuse, our favorite CRM, right? So IF3 has a lot of features in it that makes our information readily accessible. It makes us able to focus more and allows us to reduce errors in our business, right? And one of the things that I get asked a lot by people is about groups and push to, right? Like how to maximize this feature called groups and really set it up for how our business operates. See, coming from all-in-one system or like a Podio, right? And I'm not sure, most people have come from Podio or another platform. Maybe you were lucky and found Investorfuse right off the bat, but for those of us who use Podio, we know that all of our leads were dumped in one spot. And yeah, we had this little thing on the side called views, and you could separate your leads into categories, but the problem is our acquisition reps and everyone on our team, lead managers, follow-up specialists, they all had access to everything. And what that does is, although it made all of our information accessible, it created lack of focus. Sometimes having too much in front of you can cause too many distractions and decline your business performance. So one of the things that Investorfuse came out with was groups, where it doesn't just separate them into views, it actually partitions the leads into these separate areas that only can be viewed by the people on your team that you want responsible for that role or those leads, that piece of your business. One of the things that I always recommend people, no matter how they set up, because you can set groups up in many ways. You can set it up by lead type, by market, you could set it up by a lot of things. But regardless, what we all need to have is a central inflection point, an origin of all of our leads, where our warm leads come in for our acquisition reps. That's what it is. It's a sales CRM. It's meant for our acquisition reps. We should have a centralized group or bucket. In my organization, we call it the closer group. And we make sure that all of our leads come directly into there that are warm. What do I mean by warm leads? PPC, direct mail, those come directly in. Why? Because they've reached out for us saying they're going to want an offer most likely. So we want our acquisition reps focusing on those because those are the best prospects and the best opportunities. Now, once those come in, they could take that ownership of them and they're focusing on them. But here's the thing, if you're working cold leads, one thing I'm always recommending, if possible, in the way your system's set up, if you're doing cold calling or SMS, is that before those leads come into your CRM, you have them QA to verify that they're real prospects. What do I mean by that? Well, working SMS or working cold call, right? We could get a lot of, I want $1 million, or, I'll sell for the right price. And I'm not saying that those people could not be opportunities. What I'm saying is you want your acquisition reps to really focus. And those things need to be QA'd to make sure that the person's tonality, their motivation, that your rep on the phone, your SMSer, or your cold caller asked the right questions and verified the right information to determine that that lead is worthy, and key word there, worthy of going into your IF3 CRM. Your IF3 CRM is a pipeline. It's a sales pipeline. And the last thing you want is for it to get clogged. When things get clogged, they get unhealthy. And our CRM should always maintain as healthy as possible when it comes to leads. So QA them before they come in if possible. Now we're talking about the origin point, right? The inflection point of the lead where we generate it to make sure we're keeping our acquisition reps focused and they're only working the best. But what happens when they get on the phone? What happens afterwards and they're qualifying and determining motivation, maybe the step, 2 or 3 of your sales process? Well, during that point, we may find a few things. Maybe the notes were wrong and it's a land deal, the house burned down and now you got to value it as land. Maybe it's a multifamily property, mobile home park, apartments, could make a great retail lead or whatever it is, right? But it doesn't belong in the focus or purview of your acquisition rep closer. So what happens is, if you set up your groups right, you could create categories or partitions for each one of these types of scenarios that can be worked by somebody on your team who has that training, that skill level, or that ability. So a great one is Spanish leads. We have Spanish people on our team, but not everybody speaks Spanish. So if one of my non-Spanish speaking reps gets a Spanish lead. We use the push to feature, and I'll have to make another video on why that's a great feature to reduce errors, but we use that to make sure our acquisition reps at that point know that they shouldn't waste any more time on this lead. They need to move on. They need to move through and transfer it over to the Spanish group. And so those are some great reasons, right? Like land and multifamily, not everyone's trained on. So you're going to move it to maybe somebody that has that skill level to value occupancy, vacancies, insurance and taxes and rent rolls and projections. They could do the pro forma and figure that out. Not every rep can, and that's okay. Now, here's another thing that could be really cool. One last thing I wanted to touch on is with groups and the notifications you could set up and all the bells and whistles inside, you could create an underwriting group and have one person or a VA in charge of your underwriting. So when you do get those difficult leads, you could set up an underwriting, a UW group, and then your reps know that if they're on the phone and they need a value, they could push that over to underwriting and get it back. And the beauty is that inside of IF3, you can have the original person, say Brandon, maintain ownership. I push it over to John. John values it and pushes it back, and I still, the acquisition rep, maintain ownership, and it gets pushed back to me. And you could set up notifications for these things as well, so that way I know when my value's in. You can add commenting and tagging and all kinds of stuff in there as part of the process. Those are just a few things I always advise people when they come to me asking how to set their IF3 up that they want to consider. Now, some of those groups might not make sense for you. Not all of them do. Some of them we use in our organization, but keep in mind, IF3 can be customized to your business, and it is essential that you think these things through, how you operate, the type of leads you go after, who's on your team, and what you want them to do. But the key thing is, remember, accessibility of your information and to maintain focus for your people and to make sure you reduce your errors. All right? All right, guys, that's my tip of the day when it comes to groups. I'll make another one on how we set up the push to features to make it easy and reduce error, but I'll see you on the next one. Lock and load.